Hello everyone, Kimosabe here, coming at you with another video. This one is concerning the Tetrahedron off of webpage Coast Reporter, the Sunshine Coast. Former Gibsons mayor says Chapman open house is inadequate. Right up by Sophie Wood-Roofy, one of the staff, posted on April 27th at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. So here's a little picture. I'm just going to show that to you. And there we go. Two options are being considered for changing Tetrahedron Park to allow an infrastructure build for an expected 8-metre drawdown of Chapman Lake. That's the picture there, Chapman Lake. Former Gibsons Mayor Barry Janik has leveled heavy criticism against the province against an April 19th meeting between the Tetrahedron Advisory Committee, TAC, which he's a founding member, in BC Parks to discuss the Chapman Lake expansion project. Janik said the proposal by Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy to conduct an open house-style public meeting in Seychelles to discuss two options for amending Tetrahedron Provincial Park does not satisfy the conditions set out in the Tetrahedron Master Plan, which provides non-legally binding guidelines for park management, and which Janik helped formulate. In a letter addressed to the SCRD Ministry of Environment, Regional Director Jenny Ackman outlined two options for changing Tetrahedron Park to allow an infrastructure build for an expected 8-metre drawdown of Chapman Lake to alleviate water shortages on the Sunshine Coast. The first option is to cancel the park's Class A status, and the second would be to remove the 130 hectares containing Chapman and Edwards lakes from the park. In both cases, the areas would be designated as part of the Environmental Land Use Act. Ackman's letter states that a public consultation process will be launched by May with the intention of bringing forward a recommendation to Environment Minister George Heyman for his consideration this summer. We are preparing to hold a public open house in the Seychelles community, which will launch a 30-day period during which the public will be able to provide their comments on the options presented, she said in the letter. But Janik, citing the Tetrahedron Master Plan, said that's not good enough. According to that plan, an impact assessment and comprehensive public consultation process will be developed if regional water supply changes are proposed within the park's boundaries. Whereas Miss Ackman and myself diverge is her interpretation of the comprehensive public consultation, Janik said. He thinks a town hall public meeting with BC Parks and SCRD staff is a better option. Dialogue is a group dynamic. That's the important piece that's missing here, and that's why it's important to have a comprehensive discussion, he said, because of the magnitude of what is being considered. That should predict the type of engagement that is undertaken by BC Parks. When there are proposed developments that involve activities prohibited within a protected area, as is the case with the Chapman expansion project, and the Environment Minister can recommend to Cabinet and Legislature that the park's boundaries be adjusted. The Minister may also decide not to recommend the boundary adjustment to Cabinet, which can also reject it. The final decision is made by the legislator. This is a big deal, so having a little rinky-dinky open house is really not on. It's not the right process, Janik said. Adding the BC Parks is resistant to the idea of a town hall style meeting because the crowd could be unruly and turn into a mob. Ackman's letter said the two options for boundary adjustments will be discussed at the open house, but Janik thinks the public isn't being presented with a third option, which is that the minister is not prepared to recommend the application to adjust the boundaries. He argues the option hasn't been included in any correspondence between the SRD and Ackman. The Tetrahedron Advisory Committee was formed when the park was incorporated in 1995. The volunteer committee is intended to provide guidance to BC Parks on the management of Tetrahedron Provincial Park. Janik also served on the committee that created the management plan. Janik said the committee has not been consulted regularly on the proposed boundary changes categorized by the Chapman Lake expansion project because BC Parks was concerned that the committee was becoming too political. Janik denies that's the case. If BC Parks had been holding the advisory committee meetings, there would be a necessity for members to go political. The Ministry of Environment did not return requests for comment by print deadline. So there you go, and hopefully, we get to keep our Tetrahedron lakes and everything, and maybe there'd be some other ways to increase water storage on the Sunshine Coast and other things like that. But obviously, as me or the average Joe doesn't really have a lot of political power or anything like that, but everybody can voice their opinion and what you think about it. So have a good one. Consider liking, sharing, subscribing. Have a good day, everybody. Keep Masabi out.